Welcome to the next episode of Me Workshop series. My name is Michał, and today we will focus on one of the key challenges in industrial automation, which is the combination of control systems and database systems. In today's episode, we will take a closer look at how the MES Interface module on the MES IQR platform can support manufacturers in linking production and process data with upper systems. MES module is equipped with two independent Ethernet ports that they can provide separation between IT and OT layer. In addition, the module is equipped with SD card slot, which can cache database queries if the connection to the database is lost, and automatically send the data if the communication is restored with the database. Also, the module is extremely easy to configure. So without further ado, let's jump into our GXWorks free software. Let's jump into the GXWorks free software. We have simple configuration for our demo purposes, where we have MES IQR PLC and MES Interface module. We also created the sample programs for data insert, data select, and data update, which will we be using in the next part of our video. Second software which will be necessary for our application, which is Microsoft SQL Management Studio. Here we have MES database, which is our sample database, with the table MES data. Table consists of several columns where we have ID. ID is automatically generated value by the database. The name column with the string value, value A with integer value, value B with floating point value, production time and quality check time as date and time value, and quality as a string value here. And the third program which we will be using today is the MES Interface Function Configuration tool, and this is the main tool which we'll be using today. So I have clear program, just I set up the project name for our application, and the first step of our configuration will be target device setting option. So here we can set up the PLC to which we'll be connected to. We can set up to 64 devices. It can be Mitsubishi Electric PLCs, but also the Siemens, Omron or Rockwell Automation PLCs. But this type of PLCs require additional license on the module itself. In our configuration, we have the control CPU, which is a default one, and this is the CPU which is connected closest to our MES interface module. And if we go into the configuration, we can add option to link the project from GXWorks 3 and from the MES configuration module. So let me select our PLC project, select OK, and our first setting is done. Second thing we have to do is network setting. So here we can set up our IP address for the module. This is the default one, and we will leave it as it is. But we can also set up the second channel, which can be used for the separation between IT and OT layer. And also we can add the host name of the device. The third settings, which I really recommend to do, is to select the DB buffer setting. DB buffer is used for buffer the queries from the PLC in terms of losing connection with the database or with the server itself. So our PLC and the MES module can collect all of the queries, and if the connection will be reestablished, all of the information will send back to the database without losing any information. So let me check up this data. Next settings which we have to do is to set up the connection with our database. So we can create up to 16 connections. Let me add first one. I will give the name, and we can select database server or application server. In our case, it will be database server, and we can set up the connection via service or DirectDB. In our case, we will use DirectDB connection. So I will have our IP address. This will be IP address of my PC where I have database. Then we have to select the database type. So in our demo, we will use SQL Server 2019 because I'm using the SQL Express 2019 from Microsoft. And here we have to set up our database name. So it will be MES database option and then the username. So I'm using the SA user from the database itself and my password to the database. So now we can check up the connection. So first of all, we have to connect to our module. So the default username is the name of the module itself. So RD81 MES 96 and the password is Mitsubishi with capital letters. Connection test. So as you can see, we are successfully connected to our module. And now we can test our connection to the database itself. So you can select OK. The next step is to add the table connection. So here, as you can see, we can add up to 64 tables to one project. So let me select MES database. I will give it name MES data as our table. And now we can just browse DB table information. So MES module will connect to the database and find out all the tables which are available for our module. So like you can see, we have MES data. The next one, we can browse for the fields inside the database. So we can see now all fields in the table. So I will select all of them using the shift and just click. And the system automatically detects the type, data type for all of the fields in our database. So let's go OK. So we just set up our tables, our database, and the last step is to set up our connection between the project of GXWorks 3 and MES module. So we will add our data tags. So for our demo, I will create the device tag name trigger data, and using the right click on the table, we can import global labels from our project. So now all of the data will be read from the project of GXWorks 3. Okay, so module just connected to the project and read all of the global labels which we have in our GXWorks 3 project. So I will select our trigger data. They are automatically added to my project. Now I'll select OK. And I will add the second one, will be the process data. And once again, import global label. Okay, and now we select the process data from our global labels. And now we are ready to create our job. So the job is the place where we create the actions to the database. So our first action will be insert DB. So we will create the action to the DB as an insert. So we can select our main configuration, which is the simplest one, where we set the trigger from the PLC to the module, and module will generate the action to the database. But we can also create the extended configuration, where we have pre-processing of the data, then we will ask the database, and then we can make a post-processing of the data from the database. But in our configuration, we will use our classic one. Next step is the trigger conditions. So you can set up different conditions like single event or multiple events to trigger the application. Then we have condition combination event. But for our application, I will use single handshake because we can create our job execution bit, like be insert, and our job completion notification. So we will be notified if the trigger was and the job was completed. So next step is to select the trigger judgment. So how often the module will ask the PLC for the data. So in general access, we can access up to 1 second of the scan time of the devices. But there is also high-speed access. So you can access different PLC with different intervals, but also there is each scan. So with every scan of the PLC, we can get the information. In our demo, we can use 100 milliseconds, 10 milliseconds, or 1 millisecond, but we will use 100 milliseconds. And the last step is to create the main processing event. So here we'll create the actions. So DB communication action. And here we have our insert action, select action, update, delete, multiple select, multiple insert, or we can also send the store procedure information and execute store procedure inside the database. But in our demo for now we will use insert operation, and now we will read data from our table. So as you can see, we have all of our fields, and now I can connect my data from the PLC. So like name, value A and value B. Additionally, we will send the production time, but in that case we will use macro type. And macro type, they already function to generate some information, like for example date and time for job execution, and we will use this one. Like you can see on the bottom, there is execution of SQL statement. So module automatically generated for us this whole SQL statement for the query. So now we can close this operation. In this window, we have also one additional option, which is a DB buffering settings. Here we can enable these buffering settings, because in terms of losing connection with the database, the system will automatically buffer this query. And if the communication will be restored, automatically it will send all of the data to the database. And now we can close this operation. So we are ready to create our first action to the database. So let's send this data and this configuration to our module. And then let's go back to our GXWorks 3. So I'll open now my data insert program, where we just prepared some simple logic. For the purpose of our new workshop, we created some generate data contact, where when I will force it, it will automatically generate for me name, value A and value B. So let's test it. I will hold Shift key and click 2 times. So now everything was automatically generated, like you can see here, and we can check our database. So let me execute the query, and as you can see, we have in our database the same exactly data. We can generate another information to the database, and once again we will have another information in our database with, of course, our timestamp in that case. So let's now create the select operation and update operation on the MES configuration tool. So let's add another item, select DB. I'll create classic single handshake with our trigger data. High-speed access for our PLC, and of course the last one will be DB communication action. I choose the select option and of course our database. In our system we will read the name. I created the dedicated values like read name, like read value A, and of course read value B here. But for select one, there is one important point. We have to create the where statement. And for that reason, we have something called narrowing down conditions. So we can select on which column we would like to select the data, which record we would like to read. So I will choose my ID column here and my process data also ID. In case of select operation, we will read just one record from the database, even if database send us hundreds of records in case of our query. We can of course select more data, but we have to use operation multiple select to read multiple values from the system. There is also an option for sorting orders like ascending or descending operation. And there is also option if you want to know how many records the system receives from the database. In our case, we will select OK. Next and OK. So we just created second operation. Let's add another one, which will be the update. And once again, I'll create our single handshake operation for the update operation. And of course, update complete. High speed with 100 milliseconds. And the last one, of course, our action type. Here I will select update and MES database. In this example, we will just update two columns, which will be the quality check time. And once again, I will use macro type for job execution. And the second one will be the quality. And in terms of quality, I have our process data will be quality check. And for update procedure, we have to select our narrow condition option because we will be updating multiple records inside our database, which can be really dangerous. So please pay attention to select the individual records here. So in my case, I will use the ID operation option. Select OK, and now we can just close this window. Once again, we are ready. We can send this configuration to our MES module. Okay, and we can go back to our GXbox 3. So in case of our first application, we will use our data select program. So here we can read by ID our records. So let's check our ID. We have 25 and 26. So we can use our 25 ID here from a watch table. And once again, I will select the data. And the system automatically read the information from our database. So as you can see, we have exactly the same data, like value A and value B between the database and so on. And now let's make an update of the same table. So I will go to my data update table and let's select once again ID 25. And in terms of DB update operation, we created the bGenerate contact, which if we force this contact, we will generate our quality check value. Okay, we generate OK, quality check. Now we can go back to our DB site and create execute. And as you can see, we have our quality check time and quality OK from our PLC side. We can now change this to the 26. And once again, we can generate this value to our PLC. And here we have another entry. I hope that during this short demo, you were able to see that connecting to the database can be really simple and does not require advanced knowledge of database operation. In addition, the simple integration up to 64 PLC from various manufacturers bring large degree of flexibility in system design. Thanks to MES IQR series, we can take advantage of many additional communication options, as well as the built-in simple PLC communication function, about which we have done additional material. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you for watching and see you next episode of MES Workshop series. Bye!